tables over there. We've had different kinds of meetings here over the last 3 years of me being bishop. It's great to see you again. Also saw some of you in various synod meetings we've had, at Synod Assembly, so it's great to be connected. And I do joyously bring the greetings, and in this case get to greet alongside my UCC partner in saying hello from all of the congregations in our churches of the United Church of Christ and the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, our synod here, the Northeastern Pennsylvania Synod. There are 238 of us, just on the Lutheran part, and we do a lot of new and important work together. And we are in the midst of new and important work in this place as people get trained in new ways, as we continue to seek and double down on our efforts to find a pastor, and as we also work with you as you work together to figure out what unity in the Spirit means and how you can unify across this area as well, this Pine Grove area that has so much energy to do more work together. And if you've heard these numbers before this, sorry, I'm wiggling this because it's right in my face. There we go. These numbers of 6261, 6 congregations working together, sharing 2 pastors, 1 deacon, and 6 licensed lay ministers doing work together. A lot of that energy comes from the energy that comes from being worked together here in Schuylkill County long before those numbers popped into anybody's head when we started doing this. The Pine Grove Collaborative working together, you all connecting together in the way that you're connecting, and that interconnected life that we have together. So I'm grateful for that. I'm invited here by our appointed interim pastoral leader, John, to be here, and I've gotten such warm welcomes from all of you who do leadership here and support ministry and life here. So thank you. We'll also be hanging out for a little. We've got to leave about 11 or so, but we'll be hanging out. Hopefully, I heard about such tasty things to eat, and I'm looking forward. I had a minimal breakfast, right? So that I'm powered up, ready to eat well while I'm here with you. And as always, at this invitation, I'm glad to be here. I live in Kutztown, 45 minutes away. I've spent a lot of great time in Schuylkill County, almost more than some of the others because it's close by, but also it's a big territory. I always say if you flatten it out without the mountains and hills, it'd be like one of those western states, just here in northeastern Pennsylvania. But I am grateful to be here, and it is certainly not the first time that some of you see my face, though I am meeting some of you for the first time. It won't be the last time either. Myself and Pastor Zach LeBas, who is my direct contact here. You're awesome Dean, Brian Meisel, the really active Mission District Council that works in this area. And I know from talking with Cora, the life in the UCC world here as well is strong and vital. We've got to draw on our strengths. Because you know what? There's a lot of forces that are trying to drive us apart. And it's getting hotter and hotter out there in the world, isn't it? From those forces that want to separate us. So the more that we talk together, listen together, learn together, imagine together, the better off we'll be. And we need Jesus, and we need this gospel, and we need these texts we have today, which are kind of a struggle. I'm blessed because I have a Bible scholar in my household. He's my son, but I have another one too. my wife, the Reverend Dr. Allison Deforest, and so we used to be co-pastors together. We would preach a lot, 1 week and then the next. But we always did each other, did sermons together and all that. So we've been talking about and wrestling with these texts as well. They're full of tough stuff. They're full of grief. And we know grief. They're full of suffering. They're full of questions, hard questions, unanswerable questions. I received a text message recently, someone telling me that they had a close relative of theirs who had found 2 large masses on their lungs. And they wrote to me in the text, I don't understand this, Bishop. She never smoked a day in her life. It's times like these I want to talk to God and ask, why? Why? So we encounter in our gospel today people also dealing with issues of life and death. First, we have a woman who has been suffering and subject to hemorrhages for 12 years. This means, most likely, she's been having menstrual bleeding, non-stop periods, not just for a few days a month, but every day for 144 months. Being a man, I can't really even understand that. I can't. But for this woman, you have to add another difficulty. At this time in history, a woman during her period was considered unclean and could not participate in a normal way with the rest of the community. She had to stay in a separate area and couldn't be around other people, because if they touched her, they too would be considered unclean, and they would have to be separated out, kept away from the rest of society. Again, separation, separation, separation. Imagine that pain and agony of that. When you think about this woman and her 12-year condition, it's probably more accurate to describe her as having not just a physical illness, but also a behavioral disability. It's not her behavior that's disabled, it's the behavior of all those around her. A true disability to be separated in that way. She had a condition that people couldn't understand, that makes them afraid, and is very hard to treat. And in many ways, it's more like what we have today with the way people treat mental illnesses and disabilities, don't you think? We know that we have friends, family, co-workers, people in the life of this congregation. And these people in across our congregations who are struggling, or who are caring for people who cannot easily go out in public, cannot participate fully in everyday worlds of school, work, or even play. And let me admit, I have a child like that, a son like that, who really struggles to get out of the house, suffers from anxiety and depression. Working on it, but every day is a struggle. And yes, even coming to worship. So this is what it's like for this woman, to even go outside and be with other people, sit with them, walk beside them, is near impossible for her. We get another detail about this woman. She's not necessarily a poor person. At least she'd start out that way. Before her illness. In fact, it says, look clearly at that text. It says, she had endured much under many physicians and had spent all she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. Spent all she had. Do we know this person? Have we walked in her shoes? Insurance, don't go far enough. Spending life savings on health care. Surprises that crop up. It's scary. I know a really kind and faithful woman whose elderly father went into the hospital for a routine procedure and came out sicker than when he went in, and a few months later he passed away. It looks likely that he was given the wrong medication. And maybe the family should sue the hospital. But the thing is, he's gone. No lawsuit is going to bring him back. It is so much like the other story we have in this text this morning. Jairus, the synagogue leader, a kind, faithful man of God, nothing bad should happen to him, right? Well, he's got a sick daughter. Being high up in his worship community did not make him immune to that. Being close to God did not make him immune to that. We don't know why she's sick. All the gospel writer tells us is that she is 12 years old. 12 years. And I'm sure you caught that that's the same amount of time as what? As that lady. And the hemorrhage that she's been having. Is that a coincidence? Does the Bible have a lot of coincidence in it? I don't think so. And the way they tell the story, where they waited to give that detail till a little parentheses at the end, is the dramatic way of going, dum, 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 make the connection, right? It is. Now, scholars have tried to interpret this number in a lot of ways, but I see that connection. And this is how I invite you to go a little deeper to it. I invite you to see the connection in this way. What if that little girl's illness is not new? What if she's been ill or disabled all her life, the whole 12 years? And what if the synagogue leader has also tried everything for 12 years to make her better? Just as this lady has spent all her 12 years, all her money, all her prayers, going doctor to doctor with no success. And so, when Jairus, hears about Jesus, maybe a healer who could finally make a difference, he doesn't just send a messenger out to Jesus. This probably very dignified, highly placed religious leader, this gentleman, he runs out himself into the streets to seek Jesus and falls at his feet. And as the text says, begged him repeatedly, my little daughter is at the point of death. It's gotten that bad. This is the last chance, the last minute. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live. Who cares about dignity at that point, right? If we love somebody, if we were a parent or a grandparent, would we not run out in the same way for a hope like this? I mean, can we possibly imagine? I think we can. How desperate this loving dad feels as he begs Jesus to go faster and push through the crowds. Anything to get Jesus to his house. Hurry before it's too late. And then what does Jesus do? He stops and he talks to this woman. Please, Lord, every second counts. I could lose her any minute. And then it happens. Those men come from his house. And he sees them coming, and you know he knows who they are. Their faces are lined with tears. They look down at the dirt. Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? Can you picture that father's face? Can't you imagine what's in his heart? I know you probably can, because you felt that kind of pain yourself, or you've been with people that have. These men who bear this terrible news, note that they also, like that text message I got, asked a why question, a tough why question. But it's different from the text message. That message says, the text message, why do horrible things happen? The why question here is, why bother the teacher anymore? Why bother? Why bother with faith? Why bother with a God who lets this stuff happen? Why bother to come to church? Why bother to leave the house, to go to work, to talk to anybody, to go any further? What's the point? Why bother to believe in this stuff at all? Some people read this lesson and they may see the story of two miracles, and they hear a message like this. Well, if you just have enough faith, like that woman, like this man, and pray really, really hard, well, God will grant you a miracle. But I think there's deeper stuff here going on. I look at this, and I think we have to have the courage, and God gives us an opening to say, even with miracles, even with these miracles, there's questions that remain. So many reasons to ask God why. Why did God let this woman suffer for 12 years? Why did all her medical treatment fail? In fact, make her worse? Why did Jairus, the synagogue leader, a religious man, a good and faithful father, why did his daughter get sick in the first place? Why did Jesus not cure her on the spot while he was in the street so she didn't have to die? Why did this dear dad have to spend one moment in grief, his heart ripped out, all hope lost? Why? Well, I'm the bishop, so I'm here to give you the definitive answer. Get ready. I don't know. Sorry. You can stop paying me, I guess. But I will dare to say this. These three people, the woman, the dad, the daughter, let's start here. They did nothing to deserve this. So why do terrible things happen to them? Why do terrible things happen to us? These three people had no answers to these why questions. All they had was this man. And contrary to all those biblical epics and all those things we watch, he didn't walk around with a glow. He wasn't taller or blonder or bigger than anybody else. He was probably just regular stature, a regular looking guy. A man who showed up in their streets and started healing. A man who was one of them, yeah. Who walked with them along those dusty roads. Who came to their homes, their places of work and worship, their bedsides and their graveyards. Who did indeed heal many of them. Though millions around the world at that same time, 2,000 years ago, didn't make it all the way to the Middle East to see him, never got to meet him, never got to be healed. A man who, as one of them, a real human being who could get thirsty and feel pain himself and be cut and bleed real blood, this man, in all his humanness that makes him as weak and mortal as the rest of us, stood up, stepped up for them. For them. Against all the forces in the world that didn't care about their well-being, their health care, or happiness. Powerful people and forces that actually wanted to use and abuse them. He stood up, and the evil noticed and cut him down. And he died. Essentially alone, surrounded by people, but alone. In pain, in suffering. Leaving a lot of people on that Good Friday asking why. And if the story had ended there, we would all be left forever stuck in our weakness, our sickness, our loneliness, our despair. The only question we would have left is why and why bother? But this story ends not stuck in death, but with life. Not just with graveyard grief, but with empty tomb joy. We know the word. Resurrection. New life. Healing. Wholeness. Togetherness. Never again to die. Completing and making his story our story. We live right now in days a lot like those 12 years before, those 12 years full of struggle and questions, lived by the woman, the dad, and the daughter. And we know, because of Christ and his resurrection, we know we have been promised healing, wholeness, new bodies, restored relationships in a new heaven and a new earth when all and our living Lord will say to each and every one of us, it'll be our turn to hear in our language what they heard in Jesus' language. Talitha kum. Little boy, little girl, get up. Get up. Rise and be healed. Come and follow me. And I'll feed and I'll heal you. And I'll sit and stand beside you today, every day, and forever.